Hello, welcome. My name is Abdullah. I'm a program manager for Google Research. And today I'd like to talk about Project Pastra. So Project Pastra is a Gemini Multimodal Live API developer guide that was created by my colleagues Heiko Hotz and his team. And the whole idea is it's a guide for developers who want to build AI applications that can talk, hear, and see things around us and respond in real time using Gemini's multimodal API. So if you head to the repository of Heiko, there are many sections. It goes over key concepts such as real-time communication, audio processing, and so on. The first part goes into get you started with the Gemini Multimodal Live API, the concept of the SDK, and text and audio interaction. And then the next section goes into WebSocket development using the Web Developer API. And then the last part is more about getting your app ready for production. What I found really interesting is real-time communication and audio processing. We know how complex and sophisticated communication is with other humans. You do things naturally by taking cues. You know when a person has finished talking, and you know when it's your turn. This is much harder to do when interacting with a machine. And so there's a whole chapter actually in the guide that goes into how this is done. I found that fascinating. So there are really two parts. You have the browser, the web browser, and then you have the API side. And the way it works is that the browser takes in audio from your microphones, and then you have in a code a class called audio recorder, and the role of this class is to basically act as a controller, but also split the audio into really small chunks, like let's say 32 milliseconds, and then those chunks are sent over to the API through a WebSocket. On the API side, you have an audio encoder and decoder that can convert the audio chunks into tokens, and then same thing, the tokens back into chunks. You have AD, which is a voice activity detection systems. As I explained before, we do this naturally. We know when it's our time to talk, when we are talking to a person, and this system tries to do the same thing. It can detect pauses, and it also tries to determine whose turn is it to talk, the model or yourself. So once this is done, the tokens are sent back to the browser, and then you hear the model responding. So this is a very quick overview of what Project Pastra is. Now, to get started, I would like to show you how you can do this in less than a minute. So for that, the very first thing you need to do is download the repository. I've created a very quick 3 lines guide if you're interested into the steps in getting started. So you can head to my blog post. So in my blog post, I basically just show you how to quickly get started. So you download the repository from Heiko, as I mentioned before, and then you need to secure your API key. If you don't have an API key, you can go to the Google AI Studio website, click on Get API Key, and save it so you can add it to your files. So that's getting the key. Then once you have the key and you have downloaded the repository, you need to add your key into the index.html files. So for each chapter, there's an index.html file, and you need to add your key so that the demos can run. Or you could run this command here, which basically just updates all the index.html files in the subdirectories, but you just need to add your key here, basically on this side. So add your key here, and then you can run this command, which will just update quickly all the index.html file. So once this is done, you are ready to start the server. And for that, you just run the command python server.py, and that will start the server. And then you can head on to localhost on port 8000, and the page will look like this. So there are several parts of the guide, as I mentioned before. And let's say, for example, if you go to part 2 here and chapter 3, this is the first test showing that the connection to the model is working. And then you have also further example where you can interact. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. How are you doing today?
All right, so this is the voice input and output, and then you have more elaborate examples later where you can share a video or your screen. So essentially, this is it. I hope this very quick overview is useful. If so, feel free to give me feedback or like the video if you find it useful. Thank you for your time, and have fun building applications.